Bruce here. This is my channel. And if you've been following along, you know that I like to talk about economics. I like to talk about people and what the heck. I like to talk about things once in a while, but today what it's all about is housing. And goodness gracious, we have a tiny shortage of housing. And when I say housing, I don't mean houses, like single-family detached houses. I don't mean that we have a shortage of those. I mean, we just have a shortage of places for people to live. It's that simple. Now, I'd mentioned earlier that this shortage of housing partly comes from really a shortage of everything. You have I don't want to say a shortage of land, but there's a bit of a shortage of land, or at least there's a shortage of land that people are willing to commit to creating dwellings. There's a shortage of capital. There's a shortage of capital that people are willing to commit to creating dwellings. And there's a shortage of labor. There's a shortage of labor that people are willing to commit to creating dwellings. And I mentioned that there had been a bit of a kind of a commoditization or this idea that construction companies will talk in terms of revenue and how much revenue they can realistically create per unit time, whereas and if you're building $5,000 a square foot house, then that's certainly it's well, you're making a $5,000 square foot house. It's for somebody. It's not for most people. That's for certain. A $5,000 square foot house. Well, it's possible to create houses nominally, create dwellings nominally for about $200 a square foot. So let's create an environment where there's incentive to build houses at $200 a square foot. Because what that does is makes it possible for someone to build, say, a 10 unit or 20 unit or 50 unit apartment building at $200 a square foot. But to make it easy, let's talk about one apartment. One 3-bedroom apartment is going to be about 1,000 square feet. 1,000 square feet, $200, $300 a square foot, say is $200,000, $300,000 to build that unit of housing. And now let's talk about affordability or return. So what's rent? Rent's like a 3-bedroom apartment. Let's just say rent's like $2,000 a month. Okay, you can rent that unit out for $2,000 a month. And I have a simple way of doing the math on this. It's I take 10 months rent. Okay, 10 months rent is the reason I take 10 months rent is because there's 12 months in a year, so let's take 2 months of the year to pay for things like insurance and upkeep and maintenance and overhead and some etc. Now the 10 months rent, that is the cash flow that's going to go towards amortizing or the return on investment. So 10 months rent, $2,000, $20,000. Okay, now let's consider a rate of return. So a 5% rate of return, if you have $20,000 annual income, 5% rate of return is multiply that by 20. So 20 times $20,000 is $400,000. So the value of that asset, the value of it as a cash flow is about $400,000 at a 5% rate of return. Now, the problem is that you can get 5% rate of return these days somewhere else. You can get it somewhere else. And but this $1,000 a square foot, or sorry, 1,000 square foot unit takes, you have to risk a lot to build it. You have to risk your reputation, you have to risk your capital, you have to risk your time, you have to risk a lot of stuff to build that unit of housing. So we simply have to make this better. We have to make it incentivized. So we can create an environment where the accepted rate of return is lower. We can create higher rents, which is not the plan whatsoever, or we can make it so that we can that it's possible to build things for less capital. It's possible. It's not easy. It's possible. Now you might think, why is that guy talking about 1,000 square feet? Who needs 1,000 square feet? Why not 800 square feet? Why not 600 square feet? Why not 500 square feet? Well, there's a couple of reasons for that. One is because my name's Bruce. This is my channel, and if you've been following along, you know I like to keep the math simple. So 1,000 is an easy number to work with. And 1,000 also includes stuff like common space. You need hallways, you need stairways, you need a bunch of stuff. But so 1,000 square feet, 3 bedrooms, that's what I'm going to call a unit of housing. 1 unit of housing, 1,000 square feet, 3 bedrooms. Let's live there. Okay, let's talk about the money. 1,000 square feet. We can talk about money. Well, the various levels of government are kicking in money here. They're incentivizing it. We need workers. We need workers. So we have to do a couple things. One is we need workers that have skill to build what it is we're trying to build. Thing number one. Thing number two, we have to reduce the level of skill that is necessary to build a dwelling. We don't need custom this. We don't need custom that. We don't need a lot of stuff. People want to live in a comfortable, safe environment. An environment that is, their children are proud to bring their friends home to play. An environment where you're happy to have your friends come over for a little dinner party. An environment that is comfortable. But what does that mean? Well, a lot of things. It means we have to look deliberately at the manner in which the foundation of the house is created, the area where these dwellings are created, the manner in which the structure is erected, the manner in which the electrical is installed, the manner in which the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning is installed, the manner in which the cosmetic finishes are applied. We must look at all these things. And I really don't like the word efficiency. If you follow earlier videos, I talked about why it's a bad word. The reason why it's a bad word is because it's not precise. Okay? It is not precise. To say something is efficient, it's like saying that you love your mother or you like chocolate. It's not good enough. Okay? Now, so choice of materials in creating dwellings, choice of manner in which the materials are executed. We want to avoid, we want to avoid customization. We want to avoid, at the same time you want to avoid customization, there's a Cowboys Fringant song. If you've been following me, you know I like these guys. They have a song called Les Maisons Toutes Pareilles. All the houses are the same. And there's a song where a guy's talking about neighborhoods, and it's a little bit much because all the houses are the same. And if all the houses are the same, it can be a little monochromatic and stultifying and depressing, whatever. That's true. However, if every house is different, it's a little tiny bit unattainable for almost anyone. So let's find the middle ground. Let's find the middle ground. I was talking to a family member a while ago, and this guy builds stuff for real. And he said that when he's speaking with his clients, he'd say, we're going to build you the least expensive thing that we can possibly build you within the law. So we're going to follow the rules, and we're going to do it so that it's barely legal and no more legal than enough. And this is kind of what I'm talking about. We want to hit this sweet spot where the dwellings are comfortable, where, like I said, people are proud to own them, people are proud to live there, people are proud to rent them, that you can have a comfortable everything. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's keep it within the bounds of possible. Okay. And earlier I talked about in this conversation, I talked about rate of return, this idea of a 5% rate of return, or a 4%, or a 3%, or a 2%, or an 8%, or a 10%, whatever the percent rate of return is that you're looking for. But I've been thinking for a while that an idea in creating housing is to create defined return housing, so that we're going to build, and we're going to track the costs. We're going to do it as accurately as possible, and then at the end of it, we're going to set the rental rates to garner an economic rate of return that is fair. So the upside is that the upside to the builder is that we can remove risk by public entity participation. The downside to the builder is that they have to trade off windfall. So there's not going to be a 50% rate of return or a 20% rate of return or an egregious rate of return. There's just going to be a return that everyone can live with in a place that everyone can live. I like this idea. Now, if you happen to have a spare $150 billion and you think that what you really need to improve your life is to buy a social media company, well, I think you should work to try and find happiness, fulfillment, and satisfaction in something that's going to create happiness, fulfillment, and satisfaction for more people. More people. Housing. More housing for more people. Cat. Wow. And if anyone knows me, and on a personal level, you'll know that at one time in my life, I owned a grocery store. And the reason why I owned the grocery store is because in the community that I lived, for 60 miles in either direction, there were no grocery stores. Actually, there had been one. And there had been one in the community that I lived in. And by circumstance, a labor dispute, and some other issues, that grocery store closed. And that grocery store remained closed for quite a while. And at that time, which was in the mid-1980s, not having a grocery store in your community was a problem. It was a problem for the residents. It was a problem for the senior residents that lived in the community. It was a problem for the families with children. It was a problem for everyone. Now, at that time, I also happened to own a large space. I had a room that was pretty big. I don't know how big it was because I didn't measure it at the time, but I decided that it was big enough. So what I did was I opened a grocery store. And it wasn't the fanciest grocery store. It wasn't the best grocery store. It wasn't the least expensive grocery store. And it certainly wasn't the most expensive grocery store. But I opened a grocery store. And my motivation was, first of all, the community did not have a grocery store, and it was very inconvenient. It was a problem. And my second motivation was I looked at what I had, what I knew, and what I could do, and I decided that this was possible. And so I embarked to be a grocer. Now, the fact that my grandfather had been a grocer, and my father had been, to a certain extent, a grocer, and my family members worked in the grocery industry, gave me a bit of a up. That was good. But really, I decided to open a grocery store. And what I did was I worked to have an economic rate of return so that my grocery store was profitable enough to exist. And we existed for a reasonable amount of time, and that was my grocery career. But it felt good. It felt good to have the community members and the people that lived in the area coming into my grocery store and buying stuff and buying things at a price that was reasonable. I mean, it was as low, the prices were as low as I could possibly figure out how to make them, and quite often the prices were less than what I was paying for the items. And it wasn't, and it was a heck of a lot of work, I tell you. I mean, it was like a 24-hour-a-day job. It was, for sure, for a very long time. But my fulfillment came from a bunch of things, because it felt good to provide this service to the community. And I'm talking about housing. So there are people that exist in our communities and in our environment and in our towns and in our cities and in our countries who have this same idea, this same motivation that they can feel good by providing a service to the community. Let's encourage that. Let's support that. Let's do what we can. And one way that we can do it is by building housing. And what does it mean? It starts with a yes. Someone says, hey, you know what? I have this crazy idea to build all these houses for this apartment building or this whatever, but I have this. Like most people say, well, I have this asset, I have this much money, or I have this property, or I have something, or I have this skill. But what I don't have is everything. I don't have the complete package, and I need your help. Will you help? Now, if you happen to be sitting on an extra $150 billion, then help. If you happen to be sitting on something, help. You can help. That is how things get done, is by people saying yes and helping and doing what they can. There you go. And I have a relative who says, hey, if you want to help yourself, help somebody else. It feels good. And I say that, you know what, my name's Bruce, this is my channel. If you want to help, leave me a comment. If you want to get more of this riveting content, subscribe to the channel. If you want to tell me I'm stupid, leave a comment, tell me I'm stupid. It doesn't matter. I don't mind. You've probably made up your mind by now about what kind of person that I am, and there you go. Right? Thank you very much. There's going to be more on this because it's not an abstraction for me. I have experience building houses. I have experience in very large projects. I have experience in very small projects. I have experience. And so when I stand in the middle of my community, my town, my country, my world, and I see that this need, it's a visceral thing. And when I was a kid, I think lots of kids take swimming lessons, and I took swimming lessons. Thanks, Mom. And I took lifeguard class. I'm gonna be a lifeguard. And the thing they said when you're in your lifeguard class is this: they say, when you see a need, react. You see someone in help, you see someone needs something, someone's drowning, throw them a lifeline. Get on it. Help. If you can help, help. There, I'm going on. Bruce, it's my channel. Leave a comment. Oh, and if you notice, I'm going to throw some dump trucks in the earlier part of the video or some excavating, because I made I made a video about an alternative to subways that I see in some parts of the world that are definitely worth exploring. And the reason is because the most expensive construction project that you can probably ever really embark upon is digging a hole. Digging a hole is ferociously expensive. Takes an awful lot. Thank you very much. Bye.